It is Wednesday, April 3rd, and we were here at the Highlands Ranch Mansion in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, getting some thoughts on the 23 years that our guest for this oral history, Terry Nolan, has spent here in Highlands Ranch working for the Metro District of Highlands Ranch. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing some of your thoughts on your time here working in our lovely community at this point. Starting out though, tell us a little bit about you. Where were you born? When?
So I was born in Kingman, Arizona on August 16, 1947. 6 weeks later, my family moved to Southern California. I'm the son of a school teacher. Went through high school in Whittier, California. And then I went to the University of Colorado with an ROTC, Naval ROTC scholarship. 4 years later, I graduated with a degree in psychology and went to Pensacola, Florida to become a naval aviator. 26 years later, I retired. Along the way, I picked up a master's degree in human resources management from Pepperdine University while I was working full-time. 26 years later, like I said, I retired from the Navy and decided I maybe wanted to come back to Colorado because I really enjoyed my time in Boulder and this climate and this state, just a great place. Mountains, great weather, skiing, all those things. So I came back here and started looking for work and was fortunate enough to be able to be hired as the general manager of the Highlands Ranch Metro District.
Yeah. What created the opportunity that position was available?
Well, my predecessor, Jim Worley, who happens to be the chairman of the board right now, the Metro District, left the position, and so therefore the vacancy. Mm-hmm. And I was really fortunate. I'm told there were 330 applicants for the position, and I was able to convince them I was the leader they're looking for.
Because you had the management background and the experience with the Navy.
Yes, Mark. You get a lot of great experience in the Navy. You get leadership experience from almost day one if you go in as an officer, and I had that background that was really helpful.
Yep. What was it about the job that was attractive to you here?
Well, part of it is it's still in service to it's a service job, if you will, public service. That appeals to me, to be working on something that's of value to others, not just trying to make money for a company, for example. That's appealing to me. And it was just a great leadership opportunity to be able to come in and take over as the guy in charge. So, I have no regrets whatsoever.
How large was the staff at the time that you started 23 years ago?
Smaller because we've grown a lot, but I don't know the exact number. I'd estimate around 50 or something.
And by comparison, where are you now?
About 85.
Okay.
And we try to keep pretty lean. We have 26 parks now, so we have a lot of work to do.
You're running 2019 almost a $70 million budget now.
Right.
What were you working with when you started?
Oh gosh.
I suspect considerably less.
It certainly was considerably less. We've grown the organization right along with the community. When I started, there were 33,000 people living in Highlands Ranch, and there's probably 97,000 now. And we probably had 12, maybe 10 parks then when we started. Now we have 26, and corresponding increases in park landscaping, open space, and all those things. So, yeah, we've grown the staff quite a bit.
Yeah. So when you started, what were your priorities starting in new as this general manager here?
That's pretty simple. I had 26 years in the Navy, but I had 0 time in local government, so I needed to listen.
Yeah.
And that was my focus, I assure you. We have very capable people here that reported to me, so I was in the listening mode, trying to understand what this business is about, and then as the opportunities presented themselves to use those things I've learned about leading people. And it's gone great. It really has gone great.
Yeah. 1996, you were in a growth mode here, Highlands Ranch was in a growth mode. And so I suspect that your priorities would be very different than today, when
Absolutely.
you're closer to build out and you may be closer to a maintenance mode, particularly with the age of the infrastructure requiring upgrades.
Absolutely. So it's a very different organization than it was when I started here. The focus when I started was building infrastructure. So we had a rapidly growing community, and the Metro District's responsibility is to build all of that basic infrastructure, such as roads and traffic signals and fire stations and parks and trails and sidewalks and all those sort of things. So, and we were growing so fast. In fact, we had about 2,400 new homes 1 year built in the late 90s, and that continued to the early 2000s. So, and additionally, the developer had a large influence on the Metro District back then. We had several board members. We actually had 5 different boards. 1 or 2 of them, I can't remember, were all developer board members. And so we've transitioned completely now. We've finished building all that infrastructure, and now we have all these parks and parkways and open space. And the mansion, of course, that we need to take care of and maintain. And we have a citizen board now. And so our focus has shifted from building infrastructure to providing services, from developer control to essentially no developer influence at all, and control by the citizens elected to the board.
Yep.
So, big change.
Early on, 1997, big change occurred when Mission Viejo, owned by Philip Morris, decided they didn't want to be in this business anymore, so they sold this and other of their properties in California and elsewhere to an interested buyer, Shea Homes.
Right.
Tell me how that affected your working relationship, where all of a sudden the major landowner of the undeveloped land was a different company.
So, first I want to say that we are blessed here to have, I think, the best developer anywhere. And that applied to Mission Viejo Company as well as Shea Homes. So, the transition was very simple to me because Shea Homes bought Mission Viejo Company from Philip Morris, essentially, and they kept all the staff there. So all the people I'd been working for Mission Viejo Company were now working for Shea Homes. So we had all those relationships established, and they set very high standards for this community from the beginning, and I think they've carried that through. I could give you countless examples of what a great developer Mission Viejo and Shea Homes is, and so there really wasn't much of a difference for me.
Priorities didn't change much?
No, they really didn't.
Yeah,
They just
that's
kept,
good.
They kept executing this great plan that they had.
Good. Around that same timetable, one of your early ideas was the establishment of a nonprofit foundation. Tell us more about that, of why you proposed that idea and how successful it's been and what you've used it for.
So it's the Highlands Ranch Park and Recreation Foundation. We started it in 1999, I believe. And the purpose is to give people a place where they can donate to a charitable cause right here in their hometown. And all the money stays right here in Highlands Ranch and helps deal with parks, open space, and recreation sort of matters. So it's not uncommon for local governments to establish a foundation. People feel comfortable giving to a 501c3, which is what the foundation is. And over the years, we've been able to do a number of great things in that foundation, including helping here at the mansion. So I'm happy with it. I would like to have seen it go bigger, of course, but it's challenging to raise funds in a nonprofit organization. So.
Recently, we saw an event, a whiskey tasting event here at the mansion, and I understand the proceeds were to go help that foundation.
That's right, and the foundation then in turn has the mansion as one of its primary causes that they support. So it comes right back, and that was a very successful event. Another thing that we have that I would like to have seen go better is this membership concept. Like, you can be a member of the foundation for $100 a year or whatever it is, and you get a letter every year saying, we really appreciate your support. Would you consider continuing that support? That really hasn't ever taken off, but I think that the idea that you can keep your charitable contributions in your hometown It's very appealing to me.
I look around the room that we're doing this interview here at the mansion, and I see that this furniture was probably purchased by foundation funds.
Exactly right.
Is that correct?
Exactly right. All the furnishings in this home, with the exception of some that have been donated by individuals in the community, come from the foundation.
Such as the Phipps family with some of their donations.
That's right.
With
That's right. You
the
know
tables.
better than I do, Mark.
Well,
You
it
know
comes
the
here.
lessons but Absolutely. Yeah, the foundation was the ones that purchased the furniture, and it was not inexpensive.
It's good.
It's hard to find furnishings that are appropriate for this wonderful
Yeah.
home, so.
Even things like this pillows behind it.
There you go.
We hear your director of Parks and Rec is Carrie Ward, and I understand she goes out on shopping trips. Compliments of the funds of the foundation that you had the vision to set up in 1999.
Yeah, and I have a lot of admiration for Carrie. She does a great job. She runs the foundation now. I'm not involved anymore. And yes, it's her standards that are reflected in furnishings of this building.
Yep, they've been good. That's true. You remember the scare we all had when year 2K happened around the turn of the century?
The big non-event.
Yeah. I take it was a non-event for the Metro District.
Absolutely a non-event. Y2K, I never believed anything ugly was going to happen, and certainly it didn't. So it's just funny, I think.
Oh dear. Late 90s seemed to be the period where you were in big-time development mode for major parks. Some that might have occurred during that period of time. Gee, Redstone. I lived over in Westridge, so that was a big, big park. Civic Center Park was just developing. The Metro District was taking ownership of what was going to happen at the Cheese Ranch after Mission Viejo had pretty much torn everything down in the mid-'80s at this point. And even the Tank Skate Park and the first service center for the Metro District all seemed to occur in that period of time, late 90s, early 2000s. That was quite a bit to take on at one point.
Exactly. We were really busy, believe me. You know, I mentioned earlier about the rapid rate of growth of the community in the late 90s and early 2000s, and along with it comes all these things that we need to have, such as community parks. So prior to that, we had the community park at Northridge and at Falcon Park near East Ridge. We also have a bunch of neighborhood parks, the smaller parks that are about 5 to 10 acres. Well, these are bigger parks. Redstone will be 53 acres. And it allows us to do a number of sports fields so you can have bigger outdoor recreation events. And that was Redstone was a huge deal, absolutely. It was significant improvement in the assets that we had.
The late 1990s and early 2000s were the time when the Metro District was involved in major big parks. One of the things that went along with that at Redstone was the service center. Tell me what you had before that prompted you to spend a significant amount of time and effort establishing a first ever service center for the Metro District.
Prior to that, we were in the back room of the water treatment plant, the Centennial's water treatment plant, and we were just shoehorned in there. And as you know, the community was growing, and we were growing in response, building more and more parks and open space and trails, and we just had to have a facility. There's no question about it. And Redstone Park was coming on at about the same time, and it was the ideal location really for us to build this facility, which is now 20 years old, by the way, and we're looking at a renovation coming up this year or next, perhaps, to bring it up once again to the level we need it. But yeah, that was essential, really.
I can't drive around Highlands Ranch without seeing the Metro District vehicle. Every time I go out, I'm seeing different vehicles. I'm sure you have to have some place to park them, maintain them.
Absolutely. So
at that point.
Yep, there's a fleet shop that's in the building as well, and that's one of the things that we really need to move out of the building and do a separate fleet shop, because the size of the fleet and the amount of equipment that we have in order to maintain all these parks and trails and open space and the mansion have grown dramatically.
Yep.
So yeah, it's quite the facility
Changing topics.
Okay.
When I went back and looked at old records at the library about the history of Highlands Ranch, I can find discussion back to the very early 1990s about incorporation.
Ah, yes.
HRCA in particular seemed to have multiple committees over the years talking about incorporation, and after they did their studies, the end result always was, well, we'll have enough businesses in 5 years to support the operation. And then 5 years would go by and they do another study, and again it was another 5 years in. What's your color on the whole issue of incorporation after you got here, continue to come up, and even now today?
Good question, good question. So the last significant look at it was way back in 1999 when HRCA took a look at doing it, and they had some DU folks, students I believe, take a look at it, and they concluded that it was feasible. But it was feasible with a slight increase in property tax and with 3% additional sales tax. And Highlands Ranch is largely residential. There's not a huge base of commercial retail properties that are traditionally the source of revenue for cities which rely on sales tax. So we didn't have that real strong sales tax base. And in my estimation, it came down to the question that there is really no good answer to, and that is, what are you missing in Highlands Ranch that you want to pay another $500 a year at the time to add to become a city? And essentially the only answer was a dog catcher and a city attorney or a city judge and planning and zoning, which you really didn't need because we're a master plan community. So it really never got traction in this community. And Highlands Ranch is largely conservative, Republican, less government. And I think people are happy with what they have. So I think that's the case today as well.
A few years ago, we had a program that you participated in over at the library, where in Douglas County are you in Highlands Ranch? And someone asked you that question. I think it was Sean Boyd, and you had basically the same answer. Is, what do you think you're missing that you would get and have to pay more for? That's still your opinion, I take it.
Absolutely. I think the people of Highlands Ranch love what they have here, and the property values and the happiness of the people that live here is evident of that. So they're not really missing anything that is going to make their life better that they'd want to become a city, I don't think.
You know, there was a recent award that Douglas County got about being the healthiest county in the United States.
Highlands Ranch and Douglas County are frequently recognized for those sorts of things. The best place to raise a family, the best place to live. It's got a lot going for it. Great outdoor and indoor recreation, excellent schools, low taxes, high property values. It just works.
You know, the trails and other things that you responded to community input and have built and maintained over the years. There's a lot to do with that.
We always try to involve the community when we're working on a project. We invite people that surround the project to come give us their thoughts and try to incorporate them as best we can while serving the greater population.
When I look back over the 23 years that you've been here in the history of Highlands Ranch, it seems to me that good ideas never happen quickly because this is government. And lots of things have to go into the planning of an idea. As our community has aged over the 23 years, as you and I have both as well, there's been more input for a community center for our seniors, who are an increasing percentage of the population and will continue to be over the next few years. I've heard discussion of that back from the early 2000s about the need for a senior center. Where are we at today? Why does it take so long sometimes for these good ideas to actually get accomplished?
The senior center has been on our radar for a lot of years. Like you say, it was part of the 2002 Enhance the Ranch initiative, which failed. But some things just have to reach the right time and place. They have to mature, and you have to have the demand for it to really make it go forward. And we're there now with the senior center. It's clearly the #1 priority for future facility for the Metro District, and we're in the process of trying to find a site for the future senior center, Highlands Ranch Senior Center. That'll take several more months. It's just, and we take our stewardship of tax dollars very, we're focused on making sure we do the right thing at the right level. And so sometimes that takes a little bit longer, and we also are committed to public process. I mean, in this most recent 2-year effort on the senior center, the first year was devoted to a feasibility study and understanding what the public thinks that we need in that regard. So sometimes it takes long. I think we're fairly nimble as a government, but once again, we want to make sure we're good stewards of those tax dollars.
Well, let's talk another of your proposed ideas. There's a veterans monument here in Civic Center Park now. Those discussions started 20 years ago at this point. We have something now. Tell me about your involvement in that project.
So this is a great story in my opinion.
You're a veteran.
I'm a veteran, yes, and proud of it. But this is a great story, and it's not me so much that got this started. It was the death of Chris Falkel, the first Highlands Ranch resident to be killed in combat, that was the impetus for us to get busy with this. We had some discussions at the staff level about possibly doing something, but it really gelled when Jeff Alvis, a citizen, just contacted us and said, I'm really moved by this, and I want to get involved and help out. And I also should mention Tom Narita, who was a significant contributor as well, both financially and also with his time and effort to make this happen. And it's a partnership with Douglas County Libraries. We're using part of their land for it. I'm very proud of it, and I'm also particularly proud that we haven't spent any tax dollars on it at all. It's been funded by the sale of the dedication tiles there. And I encourage anybody who hasn't, go see it. It's a pretty great place.
Yeah, that funding occurred in different phases.
Right, we're continuing to sell dedication tiles, so, and the money that we get from those goes to maintenance of the Veterans Monument. So, and part of that too, we have the memorial section that recognizes Chris Falkel and John Stiles and Max Donahue, the 3 individuals who were killed in action, Highlands Ranch residents.
Yep. One of the things that seems to fund all the development in the heavy growth years is the Systems Development Fund.
System development.
People who are listening to this that don't know about that much, tell us about this and how important it is for you to fulfill your mandate of building roads and all the other things.
Good question. And this is one of the keys to the success of this community. And credit goes to the developer. From day one, Mission BO Company decided that the developer has a responsibility to pay for the infrastructure. So they established the system development fee. And another word for it commonly used is an impact fee. So the developer is paying for us, the Metro District, to build all the basic infrastructure, those things I mentioned earlier, including roads and fire stations and trails and parks and all that stuff. So we have a excuse me, a per acre charge that when you go to pick up your water tap and open your business or your home, you have to write us a check, and it's about roughly $35,000 an acre, depending on whether or not it's residential or commercial. And that money is designed to recover the about $180,000 worth of infrastructure we will have built, or we essentially have built already, to allow this community to grow.
Per acre.
Per acre.
Right.
Per acre. And the difference is in some communities now, they're putting the entire cost of the infrastructure on the back of the taxpayer by just issuing debt, building all the infrastructure, and having the taxpayers pay it back. Well, the only taxes that went to the development of all that infrastructure were to pay the interest on the debt here in Highlands Ranch. and therefore we have much lower property taxes than similar communities in our area.
One of the reasons why people are attracted to live here.
It's just a great story, and
Great,
my hat's
great
off.
amenities, low property taxes.
Absolutely, and my hat's off to Mission Viejo and Shea Homes for that.
The systems development fee, did that have anything to do with the ultimate remodeling of this building, the Highlands Ranch Mansion?
Yes, that's essentially the source of funding for this. It's kind of a long story, but Shea Homes agreed to allow us to use some of those funds for the remodeling of this. Additionally, they decided to continue to pay the full amount of system development fee for the backcountry development, which has private roads and stuff, so they wouldn't have had to. And that has resulted in a $4 million endowment for the mansion. So that's the key to the success of this building. We've used no tax dollars whatsoever, either in the renovation or in the operation of the mansion.
What do you intend to use the endowment fee for, the $4 million?
Only as necessary. We haven't touched it yet. Only as necessary to continue to operate it successfully and take care of it. But so far, our business model has allowed us to retain that endowment because we're able to fund all of the necessary operations and maintenance with revenues from rentals, private rentals.
In the late 2000s, there was quite a bit of discussion between Shea and HRCA and Metro in terms of what to do with this building, the Highlands Ranch Mansion. HRCA took a look at it, and ultimately it ended up with the Metro District. How did that come about that ultimately you're responsible for the mansion now?
And it's mostly the answer to that is mostly financial. HRCA did have desires to own and operate the mansion, but frankly, they didn't have that opportunity that we did with system development fees. So they would have had to, I guess, increase assessments significantly in order to fund a renovation of this facility, and we didn't have to. We essentially got money available that would allow us to take this 125-year-old building and make it brand new with all new everything, just about. So it just made more sense for us to be the owners of it.
So after that decision was made, the process, which took, I heard, 18 months, started, what was your involvement during the life of that project?
Well, of course, I'm leading the staff that's making this happen, and we were involved in countless meetings with architects and you name it to try to figure out how to do this and what to do it. And the huge share of the credit goes to Jeff Case, who was essentially the general contractor for this, in addition to his normal full-time job. And he had over 50 different contracts to make this happen. But the kind of the most important decision was, where are we going to put 220 people at a sit-down dinner? Because the mansion in its state then didn't have room for that. And we talked about taking out the southern wall of the solarium down there, a beautiful historic room, Art Deco kind of room from the 1920s, expanding that so we could sit down enough people to make the business plan work. And one of our architects came up with a brilliant idea of just building it there in the entrance into the carriage house. And I'm so proud of that because it allowed us not to impact any of the historic spaces in the building. It also, you can't see that addition, a 5,000 square foot addition, you can't see it from any angle from all of our neighbors. The noise is contained. It was just a great solution.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures of the solarium with very brightly colored circles indicating where the tables might have been.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys sitting around, both in that room and also in what used to be the courtyard that's now the Great Hall.
Yep.
With the same type of things, with tables indicating how many you could seat and how crowded it was or it wasn't, when there wasn't even a roof over
Exactly.
the courtyard at that.
Yeah, so that was part of the process, and like you said, it probably went on for 18 months or so, where we really figured out exactly what we needed to do here, and so came up with a plan.
So now we've had the mansion open not only as an historic venue, but as a pay-for-itself venue. What's your assessment on how that's gone?
I couldn't be more pleased, Mark. This building is unique. I suggest it's the best venue for if you want to have a really nice wedding and/or reception in the Denver metro area. I suggest it, or anniversary or any sort of private party, corporate party. I suggest it's the best venue of its kind. We were able to design it with that in mind. The catering spaces were helped. We were helped by caterers. We invited them in to tell us how to do that. So it caters very well. I couldn't be more proud. We essentially don't have to advertise it. It sells itself. We have enough events to fund all the operations and maintenance. I couldn't be more proud of how it turned out.
The revenue is
We had
continued.
great docents, such as yourself, who make it happen for us. We have open hours every week, and people just embrace this, and then they take that message out. So,
Yeah, I take it the revenue and the number of events has increased every year, and the impact of the taxpayer has continued to be minimal.
well, it hasn't increased every year. It's been fairly steady. We had one year that was peaked up a little bit higher than the others, but our goal is to have no more than 100 full evening paid events in a year. You just want to preserve the building for one thing, and every year we've been in the black. I can say that.
It's good.
Right.
All good. Over the years, some people have felt that there's been overlapping services between your active growth phase and parks, open space, trails, and what HRCA was doing. Redstone, you put in a tennis facility, they had their own tennis facilities, for example. What's your take on that relationship, and were you in fact stepping on each other, or was this a turf issue?
Well, I will admit that, we had I like to call them opportunities. We had some challenges with HRCA, particularly in the early years. You got two major service providers here in the community kind of feeling their way on who's going to do what. And we essentially came to a pretty reasonable division of services in the recreation area, in that they do all of the indoor recreation and we do pretty much all of the outdoor recreation. And that works pretty well. It's our parks, it's their recreation centers.
So maybe the exception is the backcountry.
The backcountry is a little bit of the exception, right? We own and maintain the 250 acres of open space that are in and around the homes here in Highlands Ranch.
Yep.
HRCA owns the 8,200 acres of the backcountry wilderness area. So that could have gone differently, but I think our relationship today is great. We get along really well. Our boards meet with some regularity. I meet with Jerry Flannery, the CEO and GM, every month at least, and I think we get along well.
Good. That's good. Well, we've mentioned that we're close to build out. I've heard 97, 98% of the land, and not many opportunities for residential infill, too much. But there is some land still in business. The biggest development, which included parks and also housing, that you're working on right now is Central Park. Tell us how that came about. I used to remember watching fireworks displays on the 4th of July in that very field.
Good question. Yeah, Central Park is our latest commercial development, if you will, and it had always been planned to be that. One of the challenges is that some of the land is owned by the city of Inglewood through their McClellan Foundation, so it was a little bit challenging for Shea Properties, Shea Homes to work out the relationships on what would go where, and they worked on that for many years, and now they came to an agreement on how that would work, and thus the Central Park development, which includes the new UC Health Hospital. Right next to that is our Central Park, which is our latest and 26th park, an urban type park that has some things that are a little different than any of our other parks. We're pretty excited about that. This is the first year it's going to be open.
And you have a Douglas County Sheriff
The tower,
facility tower in the middle of that park.
exactly, it's sort of a, if you will, iconic tower. Douglas County Sheriff needed better communications for their 800 megahertz radio, and they need to be able to be in a high spot. And we were able to come up with a design of something that looks interesting. It doesn't look like a communications tower, and that's right in the central part of the park. So it's worked out really well. It's a good partnership with Douglas County, Shea Properties, and the Metro District.
When's the hospital going to open?
Any day now, I think. It's supposed to open this spring, I believe. So, but I'm sure with a project like that, there are some challenges.
Another topic that's somewhat related to that is transportation. I'm retired for the most part, so I don't have to do the normal commute, but I saw a whole line of traffic on University heading east toward the post office there today. And traffic, even though this is a master plan community, has continued to be a challenge. What's your take on what the Metro District's involvement has been in C470 expansion tolling effort? That's been a long-term project that hopefully will alleviate some of the traffic concerns on the periphery of Highlands Ranch.
Well, first off, I want to say we have a real advantage in being a master plan community because we knew how many people were going to be here and how many businesses were going to be here when we started. And so we were able to size the roads appropriately. And I would suggest that your traffic experience in Highlands Ranch is a lot better than if you go north of County Line Road. So we have that going for us. And so people would say back in the day when we started building these 6-lane roads, they said, where are all the cars going to come from? They're going to fill that up. Well, now we're close to build out and now they understand. But very rarely do you not make it through on the first signal in Highlands Ranch. So we have that going for us. But you're right, there are challenges beyond that, and we are supportive of the C470 expansion. And in fact, we're partnering with CDOT and Douglas County on the storm drainage facilities along that road. They're using some of our existing ones and they're adding some more, and ultimately we are going to maintain them. So that's our role in the C470 expansion.
Are they still on for completion of that project sometime later this year?
Yes, it should be completed later this year, and I see them out there even on Sundays, so I think maybe that will happen. I hope so.
Good. I think we all hope that. One of the things that's changed recently here has been fire service protection. Tell us what prompted that change and what we would anticipate, including the new station up on the top of the hill here.
Exactly. Yes. I think it's another good story, Mark. So we had a 38-year partnership with the City of Littleton and the Littleton Fire Protection District, which surrounds the city. So it's a 3-party agreement over all those years for the City of Littleton to provide fire and emergency services here in Highlands Ranch. And we recognized that we needed to improve those services, to improve response time some, because we were lagging behind some of the other providers in the area. And so we established a master plan to improve the service. However, our 2 partners were struggling to be able to fund their share of those master plan improvements. And so we looked at alternatives, and the Fire Protection District and Highlands Ranch decided to go with South Metro Fire Rescue, which is a outstanding fire and emergency service provider. There's ISO 1 rated, and they're also accredited. They're one of like 17 of those fire departments in the whole country. Those are the highest levels of service. And for a modest increase in property taxes, we were able to go to them through a successful election last May here in Highlands Ranch. And then subsequently the city came along as well. So all of us, 3 of us, are now being provided fire and emergency services by South Metro Fire Rescue. Part of the agreement with them when we decided to go with them was that they would build another station here to help us with those response times. And yes, it's probably going to be just off of Wildcat on the very southern end of the future historic park.
When would we expect to see that come online?
Next year. They should be under construction this year, and it should be finished sometime next year. They intend to initially operate it with one 4-person fire engine.
Mhm. So looking back over 23 years, what do you think are the most significant accomplishments that you've been privileged to be involved in?
Just this community, I just can't say enough about the outstanding amenities and facilities and lifestyle that Highlands Ranch provides. And also, we've been able to maintain it. So I'm really proud of what we've developed, what we've built, and how we're maintaining it.
That's one of your greatest challenges now that you're 23 or almost 40 years old as a community, and the infrastructure is aging, and anything needs to be replaced after its useful life at this point. What do you see as the biggest challenges, other than what you've talked about in the 2019 budget in terms of some of the fencing, which is your responsibility at the Metro District? What do we see improving that we as a consumer might not see?
So absolutely, that's a challenge now that we're 35 years old, or however many years old we are here in Highlands Ranch, is the aging infrastructure. And back in 2004, we established what we call a major repair fund, and it's designed to have funds available to take care of our infrastructure. And the biggest piece of that has been parkway fencing. So we have 42 miles of fence. It was initially built by the developer as sections of homes were built, and it was cedar fence. And the most you can expect out of that is about 25 years. And so in 2007, we began replacing that with Trex. And Trex is very expensive, but it also lasts long and it's eco-friendly. So that's a really popular program that we're in the midst of executing. It really is going to take about 25 years to complete all that, because we don't want to tear down usable fence and spend a lot of money to replace it. So fencing's a big one. Also, we replace the playground every year in one of our 26 parks. We're replacing the little restrooms in our parks. We're redoing parking lots. It just goes on and on and on. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also looking at a major improvement on our service center, which is badly.
Which is 20 years old.
It's 20 years old, and so, but we have identified the funding necessary on all of our infrastructure. We've forecasted its life, its cost, we escalate that, and we're setting aside the money in the major repair fund to do that. In fact, the board just agreed to increase the general fund contribution to the major repair fund starting next year, and also the cell site revenue from cell sites on our land that we lease them the use of the land. That revenue goes to the major repair fund, and those are increasing as well. So we feel like we have a handle on taking care of our infrastructure.
I've read about some citizen concern about upcoming 5G antennas throughout, frequency of those throughout the ranch. What's your stance on this today?
I don't think the Metro District really has a stance. I mean, this is a tough question. You're balancing internet capability, high-speed internet, and 5G, which promises to do all kinds of things like autonomous vehicles, and I can't imagine all the things it's supposed to be able to do. So you're balancing that against the aesthetic impact of the towers that they need in order to provide that service. So our role at the Metro District, it's really a county function, not a Metro District function. Our role is we are trying to encourage them to use the streetlight poles where they currently exist, so to reduce the number of towers necessary. And then if they want to put one of these towers on our land, then we would become more directly involved. So it's going to be an interesting question as it plays out.
Yep.
Right over the next few weeks, in fact.
This has been a tough winter on trees, and the ranch has had multiple awards from Tree City. You have responsibility of the trees and the parkways and the parks. Kind of a tough winter on the trees, wasn't it?
It was, and it's not the first time either. So the Metro District owns about 16,000 trees, if you can imagine, and we have an outstanding forestry staff that does a great job of taking care of those trees. not only in our parks and parkways, but we also maintain something like 1,800 cottonwoods along the Highline Canal Trail. And these are 100-year-old trees that require a fair amount of work, as you can imagine. But yes, the National Arbor Day Foundation has awarded us Tree City USA for, I think, 31 years consecutively. And we continue to be able to meet the requirements for that award, and I'm pretty proud of our urban forest.
Here's some trivia for you. Some of those initial trees around the Highline Canal, do you know who planted them?
I do not.
The first owner of this mansion, Samuel Allen Long.
Well, I'll be darned.
He was known as an arborist, and he planted
Well, there you go.
10,000 trees along the Highline Canal.
Wow.
Yeah. That's one of the things that makes this community good, is all the trees. And
Absolutely.
what at one point was just fields without any trees at all.
That's
Being
right.
up so hot.
That's right.
Any regrets or projects that you might have wanted to have accomplished that, for whatever reason, didn't get done?
The answer to that is there are so many great things that we've done that I'm so proud of. So it's really hard to kind of try to pick out a regret. But I suppose I regret on the 5A initiative in 2002, we had 6 things that we wanted to provide for the community, and we were asking for a tax increase. Those 6 things were the historic park and the mansion were 2 of them, a cultural arts center, and this was before Parker and Lone Tree had a cultural arts center, attached senior center, civic green park, and also a contribution to the future Wildcat Regional Park. So those were the 6 things. It was going to cost $33 million at the time to do all those. It was about $9 a month for the typical home and property taxes. And we surveyed, and the answer to the general question of would you spend $33 million to do all these things came back no, 2 to 1. But we somehow convinced ourselves that if we could educate the public about these projects, that they would support them. Well, the election went down 2 to 1. So I guess I regret going to the voters when we had evidence that it wasn't going to pass.
And eventually some of those projects came about in another form, like the remodeling of this mansion.
Absolutely. So we found
But
ways.
the funding is different.
It was different. So we found ways to put together partnerships to be able to allow us to do some of those things. Civic Green Park is built now through a partnership, obviously, with Shea Homes, and Douglas County made a fairly significant contribution there. We already talked about being able to do the mansion, how we did that. But still, we don't have a cultural arts center, we don't have a senior center, we don't have Wildcat Regional Park, and all those things would have occurred had that passed.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Couple comments. It seems to me that your staff who works here, many of those people have been here a very long time, whether it's Jeff Case, Kerry Ward, or Kerry Larisi, or any number of Sherry Uppers, or any number of people have been here many, many years. And it seems to me that there's not lots of turnover in the key management positions here. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Not only in key management, but throughout the organization, our people stay here. And we have less than half the turnover rate of similar organizations in the Denver metro area. And I attribute it feels a little bit like a family here.
Yeah.
People really take care of each other. They work hard. They're very proud of what they do. We have a supportive board who allows us resources we need to do a first-class job. And what better environment to work in than if you can come to work knowing you can do a great job and that it's providing important service for people that live here. It's a pretty good environment to work in, and we just don't have people leave. I'm beginning to worry a little bit, actually, Mark, because a lot of these folks are doing pretty hard manual labor jobs, and they're into their 50s and 60s, and but they still keep working and they stay here.
Seems that you've had quite a bit of stability on your board of directors as well. Is that
Yes,
correct?
back in the late 90s, we got rid of term limits. I don't believe in term limits for local government. If you get good people on your board who are willing to give their time, and really they are giving their volunteers. Why would you throw them off when it takes at least a year to get them even partially educated for a new board member? So we got rid of term limits, and people stay for this, I think, the similar reason. They're proud of what we're doing and they want to be involved in it.
Yeah. One of the things I didn't realize was the Metro District uses their capital funds and they build the roads. And then you must have some relationship with Douglas County that you turn over the maintenance of major roads to the county. That's kind of a sweet deal. Tell me about that relationship.
It's a very good relationship. So yes, so we build the infrastructure, including roads, to the county standards, and then we turn them over to the county and they maintain them using the taxes that all of our residents pay to the county. But it doesn't stop there, really. We get together with the county, our public works staff meets with the county staff on a regular basis to help shape that maintenance effort for the succeeding years. And we just went through about a 5-year period where the county significantly increased their funding of road maintenance in Highlands Ranch, because we've gotten a little bit older and those roads needed some work, and they've done an outstanding job in partnership with our public works staff to identify all the things that really ought to be done.
Good. Tell me a little bit more about the relationship with the Douglas County Planning Commission, particularly when you were in a more active build mode.
You know, we didn't have a whole lot of involvement with Douglas County Planning, and once again it goes back to that it's a master plan community. So we had a development guide that said what we were going to do, and in partnership with the developer, we built that infrastructure and the community developed his plan. I mean, there were tweaks and every now and then, but not significantly. So we didn't have a whole lot of involvement with Douglas County Planning. Didn't need to.
But the developers would.
Oh yeah, certainly they would. Yeah, they were much more involved with planning. And like if they wanted to change, like they added some residential units to the Central Park development, and that required them working with planning in order to allow that. So, of course, we have to, being the ones that provide the service and the infrastructure, we get to comment on all that, but generally it's all been good.
Good. As a docent here, we continually get questions from visitors about the status of the historic park here. And we know that we've got a rancher who leases the land from Shea over here. And on occasion we hear a 2026 date where Shea might deed the land to the Metro District. What's the status of that project?
Yes, so when we went and entered the agreement that was, well, I think we actually signed it maybe in 2009, but we took ownership of the mansion in 2010, and along with that we got about 45 acres of what we call the future historic park. That includes the land that the mansion's on and some to the north, and then a strip down the west side where we were able to put a trail in. The remaining almost 200 acres is being used by the developer to allow them to have agricultural status on their undeveloped land. So they run that agricultural operation out of the barns and corrals and buildings to the east side of us here. And that agreement said they're going to continue to do that until at least 2020. That would have been the earliest date at which they would convey the remainder of the land. But they had the option for 2 3-year extensions, and they've indicated to us that they're going to use that option. And so we anticipate getting ownership of the remainder of the land and all the barns and bunkhouses and blacksmith shop and all that in 2026. We also plan to start planning for what that's going to be in 2023.
Any sneak preview on what you think that might be? I'm sure you have different options.
Oh yeah, there's certainly options. Most of us, I think, believe that it's going to be a sort of more passive use. We don't anticipate any sports fields, playgrounds, any of that sort of thing. More focused on history and ranching. So hopefully it'll certainly probably have 4-H, CSU extension, participation, partnership, and ranching kind of thing. And I would hope that we'd have animals here that would portray this has been a continuously operating cattle ranch for over 100 years. So I would anticipate that we would continue with that so that the public could come and experience some of that more ranching life that has occurred here for so long. So that's Terry's vision. We don't have an adopted master plan yet, and we'll start working on that in 2023.
Any similarities to Littleton Museum with
I
their
think so.
working farm?
I think so. I think Littleton Museum is a good example of what could happen here. I mean, they have programs there where people dress in the day and do sort of interpretive programs. They have a great blacksmith shop there. We have a small one here. So people like to come and see people pounding on red hot horseshoes, and I think that would be great to have that here too. So we'll see. That's a pretty good example.
What's your 5-year vision for the Metro District, and also what are your thoughts as perhaps you approach retirement at some point in time?
Next 5 years for Highlands Ranch Metro District is more the same. I mean, we're probably going to...
You're close to build out.
We're close to build out, and plus we're looking at the senior center. That's going to be a major effort, a significant addition to our repertoire, if you will. So I anticipate that happening. But I want to emphasize too that our kind of number one priority is maintaining what we have, and that's going to continue to be a priority for us because people value these facilities and services that we provide. So continue maintenance, develop a senior center that's going to be world class and serve that segment of the population that's a little bit underserved. And then look to the future historic park. It's just a lot of great stuff. So why would I think about retiring?
You tell me.
I enjoy working here, Mark. I have a great staff, a supportive board, and I've enjoyed it to this point. I don't really have any plans for changing.
Any final thoughts from you in this oral history today?
I appreciate the opportunity. There are a lot of great stories in Highlands Ranch, and I really appreciate our volunteers, our docents here, and the folks like you who work in the Historical Society, Highlands Ranch Historical Society, and for you to take the time to do the research and then actually capture these sorts of things. Not that what I had to say is significant, but some of the people you've talked to, really, it's great that you've been able to capture those. So my hat's off to the volunteers here.
Well, good. We're glad that you agreed to participate and add your name to the list of people who've been influential in how this community has developed.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank you for coming today, and on behalf of the Highlands Ranch Historical Society.
It's a pleasure.